The United States of America is an immigrant nation. From the time it was established, immigrants have come here to seek the founder's promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The American dream starts off as a dream of freedom from oppression, and that's the political side. And economically, the dream of freedom of mobility, where you can find your own talents and follow them.
The American dream was first conceptualized by James Truslow Adams in his 1931 book, The Epic of America, where he writes,
"It is that dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement."
The dream then became that America was a place of opportunity, that it offered unrivaled personal freedoms. This is a place where industry and hard work and smart ideas can find expression.
It's on the Great Seal of the United States. Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order for the ages. It was a commitment that every generation would take responsibility to make the future better for the next.
There are also new American dreamers. They are native-born citizens from hard-scrabble backgrounds, second and third generation, seeking the opportunity to develop their skills, to aim high, to work hard, to persevere, and to succeed. Frank Islam is one of those dreamers. This is his journey. He was born in 1953 in a remote village in Azamgarh in Uttar Pradesh, the most populous state of India, nestled between Delhi and the mountains of Nepal.
I came to this country as an immigrant, and I always believe in America's democracy and diversity.
Frank was the eldest of 6 children. The Islams were a distinguished middle-class family that emphasized education, optimism, and the value of hard work.
But one of the things that I treasure, my upbringing in India, people of different faith work side by side to serve the humanity.
Later, Frank enrolled at Aligarh Muslim University, AMU, one of the highest quality educational institutions in India. There, he pursued his studies in computer science. This was a pivot point in his life. Building on the values imbued in him by his family, AMU played a key role in shaping the person Frank was to become.
Aligarh University is a precious possession. It's a timeless treasure. It shaped my story and determined my destiny.
A chance meeting with a visiting professor gave him the opportunity to study abroad.
There was a professor, Wolfgang Throm, who was the chairman of the Department of Mathematics at the University of Colorado, helped me to get here.
In 1969, with only a few $100s in his pocket, Frank was preparing to leave India for America in pursuit of expanded opportunities in the field of computer science.
Education is key. Education is key in terms of being where innovation begins. It begins in the classroom. Education is key to people reaching their own aspirations. Education is key to keeping America #1, competitive-wise.
Frank chose to leave his close-knit group of friends and family because he knew time in America was essential to acquire the knowledge, skills, and opportunities to succeed in business. Departing India was an emotional moment.
I remember when I was leaving, my father said, "You will have more opportunity than I ever had in my life. Let's welcome the light of the learning. Let the light of learning penetrate deep into the darkness and light up the whole world."
Frank supported himself working at fast food restaurants like McDonald's and Shakey's Pizza. The loneliness was hard at first, but the University of Colorado was welcoming. and he built friendships, including one with Jawed Bashir.
Indian and Pakistani students, we used to get together at different places and all that. Of course, Frank came from India, and I came from Pakistan. But Frank is also a Muslim, and it was kind of more like friendship with us right away.
I graduated from University of Colorado Boulder. I received my master's degree and bachelor's degree, and that gave me the knowledge to become a business owner, entrepreneur.
In the 1970s when I met him, he was he had a good humor, good sense of laugh. I can remember him laughing pretty well. He laughed quite a bit. Yes, and by the time we met him again in 1990s, he was a pretty serious person by then. And, he was pretty successful. He had an aura about it at that time.
Frank's thesis advisor suggested he pursue a PhD degree at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. After a short time, Frank concluded a PhD was not for him and went to work for an information technology consulting firm. There, he met Debbie Dreisman, who was employed as a programmer.
We met on the job. We used to sit around, half a dozen of us, and over time, Frank and I seemed to be the last ones talking, and we just got along well. There certainly wasn't anything really outstanding about him at the time. We were a group of about a dozen people, and maybe half a dozen of us got along better than the others, and when we had free time, we'd sit around and talk.
Frank and Debbie were married in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1980. 2 years later, they moved to Washington, D.C., where they both found jobs at Computer Science Corporation, a large government contractor. In 1988, Frank left CSC to work at Raytheon in aerospace engineering and systems integration, mostly related to NASA space programs and satellite communication engineering.
I always wanted to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, because the sheer challenge of starting something from scratch and making it a huge enterprise is the challenge they always wanted to have.
In 1994, Frank risked his life savings to buy an IT company that blended engineering, science, and information technology.
I mortgaged my house for a $45,000, a company called QSS Group Incorporated in 1994. And that was a difficult challenge in my part and my wife's part.
He worked a lot of late evenings, an awful lot of midnight shifts. And after a couple of years, I just stopped planning vacations. There were a couple of times when the government was shut down in the mid-90s. He kept all of his employees on, and not one of them was working, because none of them were essential government contractors. All of his work was federal government. So that was a tough time.
It was a dark and desperate and difficult days of my life, but I always had a confidence that I'll be able to make it, and I always believe in God, and willing to take a risk, and always could have gone back to the job they already had, so it didn't really make that much a difference for me. I was on her payroll for about 2 years because I did not take any money from the company that I founded. It was challenging.
He felt he'd made a commitment to them, and the other thing was that if he let them go, if they found another job, they wouldn't come back to him when the government opened up again. So it was, partly self-interest for the company to keep the employees, because he was going to need them when the employees could go back to work again.
I became successful in concentrating several items that includes getting good education and doing my apprenticeship and willing to take a risk and becoming an entrepreneur. I surrounded myself with the strong and talented management team who share my vision and values.
If I look at QSS in a small segment and say, why was he successful? I would say 3 things. One, he was passionate about what they were doing. He really liked the business that he was in. The second thing, he was committed to it. He spent a lot of time on it. He was focused on what was necessary to make it work, and he worked hard at achieving it. And the third thing was he was confident in himself. I mean, every business and every company faces challenges, and you have to take risks, and Frank had the confidence that he could go through that.
I was able to build that company from 1 employee within 13 years to several thousand employees to a revenue of $300 million per year. I sold the business in the year 2007 to Pro Systems Corporation.
Consistent with his vision, values, and commitment to teamwork, Frank distributed roughly $40 million from the sale of the QSS Group to nearly 6 of its key executives. Frank used his part of the sale to change the course of his journey, transitioning from entrepreneur to philanthropist and civic leader, 2 roles he calls the most meaningful of his life.
I strongly believe that the process of giving back is much more rewarding than making money.
That, in many ways, is the American dream, to be able to do well and take your wealth and not, as you say, hoard it, but to give it back to make a better country.
After I sold the business in year 2007 to Pro Systems Corporation, that gave me the financial independence to start a foundation, and the foundation is known as Frank Islam and Debbie Dreisman Foundation.
The foundation's focus includes education, arts, and culture, areas that are near and dear to their hearts and to the future of the American dream. Here in the United States, Frank and Debbie have supported countless educational institutions. In India, they contributed $2 million to build the Frank and Debbie Islam Management Complex at Aligarh Muslim University.
This is a truly special occasion for me, the opportunity for me to be here to participate in this dedication of Frank and Debbie Islam Management Complex is one of the highlights of our lives. The completion and dedication of this building represents a beginning and not ending. It is the construction of the foundation that will stand the test of the time. This management complex is a place where dreams will begin and students will develop the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities to recognize them. This management complex is an opportunity creator and bridge to the future. From this management complex will come the future leaders who will make India and the world a better place.
If I would not receive the education, I would never come to the United States of America to attain and achieve the American dream. We invest in education because education is an opportunity creator and a builder to the future. As President Obama once said, education will be the currency of the 21st century. We also invest education in India. It's a tool to empower people who are socially, economically disadvantaged and who are less fortunate, who are underprivileged. If you empower them, if you give them economic mobility, they will do the wonder, they will change the landscape of the world.
Other beneficiaries of the foundation include the Kennedy Center.
As President John F. Kennedy said, that art nourishes the roots of our culture. I believe that the Kennedy Center is a temple of art. And art is a pivot point because it connects, inspires the communities. Art transcends our boundary. Art advances the social causes. And art, the most important thing, art is unified. It has a unifying and healing power.
The U.S. Institute for Peace works to get ahead of crises and focuses on how to prevent, mitigate, and resolve violent conflicts.
This is our name here.
Frank's journey has drawn him to USIP.
I think Frank's personal story has instilled in him a passion for giving back, and giving back to his adopted country, the United States. And that has inspired him to be an extraordinary civic activist. He understands and appreciates the importance of individuals taking responsibility, and he does that with generosity, with conviction, and with a lot of enthusiasm.
I continue to look for ways that I can contribute here in the United States, and also my birthplace, which is in India. It's not just the wealth and the money, it's your time, it's your talent that you give to the community and to your nation.
Islam was helping his homeland and his country when he joined President Obama's delegation to visit India and meet with Prime Minister Modi.
I view the American dream as not being just about money. And I don't think it's just about one professional pathway. It's about living in a society where everybody can follow what their dream is without being pushed around by somebody in authority. That, to me, is the real American dream. When somebody has spectacular success, like Frank Islam does, to me, it's exciting and joyful to the extent it's representative of what everybody can do.
Philanthropy, to me, is not a charity, it's an investment that yields exponential returns. And my fondest hope and expectation is when I make investment in an individual, they will, in turns, will make the investment in others, and that will make my investment sustainable.
In addition to his substantial philanthropic investment, Frank is fully invested in civic engagement, individual, organizational, community, social, and political. All contribute to making the American dream a reality for all citizens.
My definition of American dream is an opportunity for each and every citizen to attain their personal goals and achieve success. I have written 2 books. One is called Renewing the American Dream. The other one is called The Pivot Point. And both books are directed towards making the United States a better place.
Frank also writes for the Huffington Post on issues that are important to the future of America and Americans.
The American dream that Frank Islam has lived is still possible in our country because of people like Frank Islam. He is an enabler. He knew what it meant to him, and he wanted to make that possible for other people. He and Deborah are very special people because they care about America and they care about the constant reinvigoration of America, of newcomers coming and achieving the American dream themselves, and in doing so, enriching our country.
In these contentious times in America, community engagement is essential, bringing all points of view forward and fostering understanding among disparate groups.
I am engaged politically because I want to show we have a voice and make sure we have a seat on the table. And we should all be engaged politically because this way we can build a country for all, not just for selected few. Some people think government as an evil. I consider government as a necessary partner. We can work together. There are a lot of people in our community, they have a voice, and I want to be their voice. I want to be a voice for those who are voiceless.
He sponsors the Athenaeum Symposium to teach young people about the differences, what we have in common, how we differ, how we can be brought together through dialogue. Frank is receiving an award from the Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington. We call it the Interfaith Leadership Award.
The Interfaith Leadership Award presented to Frank F. Islam by the Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington for inspirational leadership in advancing interreligious understanding and service, November 20, 2016.
It's given to a prominent American who has contributed to interfaith dialogue and has led those efforts.
Thank you to the Interfaith Conference of the Metropolitan Washington for honoring me with this leadership award. While I'm the one receiving the Interfaith Leadership Award, I accept it with all humility on behalf of all the members of the conference and those of you in this audience who are working diligently together to build bridges, to break the barriers, to promote dialogue of understanding and cooperation, and a shared sense of community throughout the DC area. We must continue to fight for a fairer, for a stronger, for a better, for a more equal, for a just America.
Frank has received many honors, including the Martin Luther King Jr. International Service Award.
It is a privilege to receive this award with such other distinguished honorees. I'm most pleased to accept it on the day before Martin Luther King's birthday, the day on which we acknowledge and celebrate not only the birth of Dr. King, but also the birth that he gave to the civil and human rights movement here in the United States and around the world.
And induction into the Montgomery County, Maryland Business Hall of Fame.
I know firsthand that education helps people reach their potentials, get good jobs, and make their communities stronger.
In the early 2000s, Frank and his wife Debbie began to lay the foundation for what would become Norton Manor. It would serve as a meeting place for prominent American and world leaders to advance charitable, community, and political causes.
I'd always assumed I'd just live a middle-class lifestyle. Never had really big plans like he did.
I came to this country as an immigrant. I always believe in America's democracy and diversity, and I think that makes the country this a stronger and better America.
Norton Manor is symbolic of America's great diversity and the contributions of cultures from all over the world. A first floor in a French neoclassical style. A rotunda like the Capitol Hill Dome. The Elms in Newport, Rhode Island, built by Vanderbilt. A reflecting pool similar to Taj Mahal in India. Murals in the manner of Italian Renaissance landscapes. And there is inspiration from Muslim architecture. Norton Manor is a launching pad, a place from which new dreamers can get the support they need in what has become increasingly more difficult times.
The current political environment certainly isn't as friendly to immigrants as it was even a couple of years ago.
Things have changed. A lot of minorities are having, difficulties understanding this new president and all that. But as far as the American dream is concerned, I think it's still there. I think it's still valid.
We were the first country that was about a set of ideas. And so it wasn't just a country based on who had been living here. It wasn't a country based on the king or a monarchy of some sort. It was a country based on these ideas that set up a republic with democratic values, meaning that you had representative government achieved by the people's vote.
You know, there are a lot of people that they climb up the ladder of success and they don't want to look back down. They pull the ladder up behind them. Frank Islam is somebody who climbed the ladder and wants to keep putting new ladders down so more people can climb up.
He's selective in the people that he supports because he wants to make certain that when he gets behind someone, they speak to the true values, speak to the ideas that he wants to promote, and reflect the true values of a democratic system.
I do believe there are a lot of them, Frank Islam, out there in this world. We just have to make sure that we help them to realize and achieve their dream.
New immigrants enrich our country in many ways. Research shows that immigration contributes on average more than $50 billion a year to the economy. 44% of tech and engineering companies created between 2006 and 2012 had an immigrant founder and created hundreds of thousands of jobs, according to the Kauffman Foundation.
It means reminding ourselves that the stereotypes about immigrants today were said almost word for word about the Irish and Italians and Poles, who it was said were going to destroy the fundamental character of America. And as it turned out, America wasn't weakened by the presence of these newcomers. These newcomers embraced this nation's creed, and this nation was strengthened.
Frank Islam is a new American dreamer. One of tens of thousands of new American dreamers who are making this great nation a bigger, better, and braver place to be.